IBS and constipation. Today I was working with somebody who was constipated, and by the time I got done talking with them, they were going to the bathroom, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So the main thing that controls constipation, people are talking about probiotics and all this stuff, the gut microbiome, blah, 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 blah. The only thing that can move a stool through the intestines are the intestinal muscles, and maybe gravity is factored into that a little bit, and maybe some choke points on bad posture, but the main thing are the intestinal muscles. So with all the other muscles in the body functioning just fine, why have the intestinal muscles decided to behave differently? Now, I asked the person, like, what is something you're super stressed out about today? And they said, there was an employee at work that left, and, I really was dependent on them. Like, I really need them, and I'm sad and hopeless and depressed that she's going to come back and be able to bolster my reputation at work. And she went on about reputation this, reputation that. And I said, okay, so what does the colon do? It absorbs things. It absorbs food. It absorbs things important to our survival. So in this book, what these doctors did is they worked on people whose Crohn's and colitis were so bad, their guts were hanging out of them. And if they wanted to give them diarrhea, they would do an interview with them, and they would just talk about things that made them angry. So for this one guy, he would get super angry anytime they talked about his military career, which was like 20 years ago. He was still furious about it because they treated him so poorly. But he was also super furious with his sister-in-law, which he lived with, and he just couldn't stand her guts. And talking about these things really agitated him. He would get really angry, and then he would get diarrhea. But if they talked about his house was being in the process of being demolished so they could build an airport over it, and he, like the days were ticking by, time was ticking by, his house, he was going to lose it. And he was super depressed. His grandpa built this house with his bare hands, and there's nothing he could do about it. So his intestines, they expanded, and then the rectum part contracted to help him absorb, to hold on to this house, to absorb as much of this house, to absorb as much value as this house as humanly possible. And when they took his mind off of the house subject, his intestines loosened up, the muscles at the rectum loosened up, and he'd be able to go to the bathroom again. So this is how this woman today felt about her reputation. She made all these promises to people that this person was going to be able to help them, yet she was going to, leave the company the next day. She was hopeless that her reputation was going to be in, like, if you've ever played World of Warcraft or a video game, like every time you kill a monster, you get 10 reputation with whatever faction. She couldn't get, reputation is important to our survival. If you don't have a good reputation in your clan or in your group, you're eventually going to get kicked out of it. So she felt like she couldn't absorb this reputation because this person was leaving. Now, there's a few ways we can change her perspective on this event. Maybe I could change the perspective of like, hey, you really don't need this person. Maybe we could get this person to stay. There's multiple solutions to this thing, but it ended up by the end of the day that this person decided to stay in the company and that everything was going to be okay. And the second that happened, while I was talking to this person, they got a text saying that this person was going to stay in the company. She had to abruptly, remove herself from the conversation and run to the bathroom. So for those of you who have constipation, IBS and constipation, you need to ask yourself, what is something important to my survival that I cannot absorb, and I am sad and I am depressed that I'm losing access to this thing? And the colon is just trying to hold on to it. and absorb as much value out of it as possible. Now, it might not come to you at first. This conversation with this woman today, this person was very self-aware, has done a lot of psychological work, and it even took this person quite a bit of time to locate what that is, and then once you locate what it is, to come to a solution. And I know that's a tricky process. So that's why I have created a 13-day protocol that helps people understand what their intestines are doing, what their intestinal muscles are doing, what their brain is doing. You can't play a game of chess unless you know how the game works. So during these 13 days, what we're going to do is understand what our body is doing, understand how diet plays into this, find those traumatic events that put your gut into overdrive, find the conflict reminders, find the PTSD triggers, and then we are going to resolve those traumatic thoughts and resolve those traumatic memories. That's how you stop the constipation. You find and resolve, and this 13-day protocol helps you do that as fast as possible with the least amount of effort. So, my name is Mike, the Healer Gut Guy. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below, and I'll answer it as soon as I can.